10 years has passed in Westeros, and holy moly, a whole lot happened in King's Landing. Though in the real world, House of the Dragon bids farewell to the several young cast members, Millie Alok and Emily Carey among them, and brought in the old version of the characters. Rhaenyra and Alicent are now played by Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook respectively, but while the actresses have changed, the tension between the prince and the queen remains. As on Game of Thrones' initial season, the gist of King's Landing's drama boils down to parentage. Rhaenyra has given birth to another son, and like the rest of her children, he bears little resemblance to Laenor Velaryon. Keep trying, Sir Laenor. Alicent jabs, you may get one that looks like you. For his part though, Laenor isn't offended that all of his children bear a suspicious resemblance to Sir Harwin Strong. But the more brown-haired and brown-eyed offspring he and Rhaenyra supposedly have, the more the court talks about it and more eyebrows are raised. Alicent especially finds Rhaenyra's actions offensive given that she, and not Aegon, is set to inherit the throne. She tries to make a literally rotting Viserys see the truth, but he refuses, content to believe a lie. Sir Criston Cole sees it as well, so he treats Rhaenyra's children as lesser during their combat instructions, and of course, there's fighting amongst the kids as well. Everyone gangs up on Alicent's poor Aemon, who does not have a dragon. One day things get out of hand. Criston insists that Aegon spars with Rhaenyra's eldest son, Jacaerys, even though he's far younger and smaller. Obviously, Jacaerys is beaten badly and fast. Harwin sees what's going on and steps in to help the kid. His is enraged by Criston's treatment of him felt snidely. Sir Criston's remarks about that anger like that is usually reserved for a family member, a son. Harwin loses it and pummels Criston, but unlike him, he stops before punching through his skull. With everything unraveling around her, Rhaenyra decides to extend an olive branch to Alicent. At a small council meeting, she proposes marrying their eldest children when they are of age. Viserys thinks it's a lovely idea, but Alicent is insulted. She knows Rhaenyra's offer only comes because she's concerned at risk. She laments to Larys Strong that she has no one on her side after her father was fired by Viserys, and that she wishes the Hand of the King would have given Viserys an unbiased counsel, or at least a counsel in her favor. Harwin is forced to leave after his stunt in the courtyard, and the Hand of the King goes with him. Hearing the Queen's lament, Larys creates a small army of mutes from the King's Landing cells, who then kills Harwin and Lyonel Strong by starting a fire in Harrenhal. Well, I guess that means goodbye, Harwin. I mean, I feel like we barely knew you. That is perhaps the biggest shortcoming of this episode, because several characters are in a new relationship that end badly, but because we didn't see those relationships grow, we don't feel as much as they end. Another example is Daemon and Laena, who seem to have a happy enough marriage. They've been living in Pentos, eternally guessed whose dragons are used to means of resolving conflicts. A pregnant Laena Velaryon wishes to go home, but Daemon wants to stay where they are. That's a source of conflict between them. Perhaps predictably, there are complications with Laena's labor. In the end, she chooses to incinerate herself with dragon fire rather than have her womb cut open. Daemon arrives second to late to stop her. The scene where she orders her dragon to burn her to death is surprisingly emotional. It's clear the creature doesn't want to kill its rider, and she has to say Dracarys multiple fucking times before it obeys her. Back in King's Landing, Rhaenyra senses trouble, as does Laenor. At first, he wants to leave to join the fighting in the Stepstones, but Rhaenyra forbids him. But in the end, they decide to leave and go to Dragonstone together, intent on fleeing the storm before it hits. And by the look of him, Viserys doesn't have long. Once he dies, there'll be no avoiding that storm. And can I just say, this is among the best written installments of the show yet, and the dialogue positively sings throughout. Some of the best lines are borrowed from George R.R. Martin himself, like Alicent's absolutely cutting takedown of Laenor and his quote-unquote children. But many others appear to have arisen from the joint efforts of the writing staff, and the script is written by Sarah Hayes. Just about everything said in this episode is believably Westerosi, with the lines consistently rising to the heightened occasion that characters find themselves in. Just listen to these scenes and their dialogues and tell me that they're not that bad.
I'll take him myself.
You should remain a bed princess.
Yes, I should. Help me dress.
I do believe he has his father's nose.
The willful blindness of a father towards his child.
I wish my father affected a similar blindness.
Then I won't.
You are the challenge! You are the challenge, Aegon! Simply by living and breathing!
He wouldn't hesitate to speak the truth to the king if Otto Hightail was still at hand.
You cannot say, my queen, that your father would be impartial in this matter.
No, but he would be partial to me.
There is just simply so much joy to be had when everything looks, sounds, and feels right on a period or fantasy show. Rarely has it been easier to suspend one's disbelief that Westerosi history could be our own history than it is here. The sublime execution of all these elements help first ease the viewers in and then ultimately buy into what could have been a very chaotic episode otherwise. Though it may not at first seem like it because the ride is so smooth, quite a lot happens in this episode. But the core of the episode remains the conflict between the titular princess and the queen as they compete for influence at the court. At first, Rhaenyra's current situation, a gay BFF for a husband and a zaddy paramour to churn out some heirs. Seems pretty ideal. Of course, we all know better. This is the Game of Thrones after all. If you don't win, then you're gonna fucking die. Refreshingly though, Aegon himself is the most oblivious to all of this. I think sometimes we just forget how central of a role children have played in Martin's world since the very beginning of Game of Thrones. I mean, sure, Rhaenyra and Alicent were teenagers when House of the Dragon began, but hey, 13 might as well be the new 30 in Westeros. The sudden influx of young blood in the form of Aegon, his brother Aemond, his sister Helena, and Rhaenyra's Jacaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey really brings the show back to the halcyon days of the Throne pilot when the Stark kids just trained to be adults in Winterfell, blissfully unaware of the horrors that would soon arrive. The tragedy here is not that the kids are bad, they very rarely are, save for Joffrey Baratheon, who was a completely satanic fucktard from birth. Instead, the tragedy is that all the adults in their lives will fail them. Sure, Aegon and Jacaerys are seemingly close enough now, but how many more grueling combat training sessions with Sir Criston Cole will it take for them to, realize that their enemies and their mothers are just, not on the same page? The one area where the storytelling capabilities fails to elevate in this episode is in the sudden super vilification of Larys Strong. As witnessed last week with Daemon's Sith Lord glow up, pure mustache twirling villains isn't a particularly good look on any House of the Dragon characters. Larys' plan to murder his father and brother certainly makes more sense. In his devious mind, it solves a lot of problems, preserves the House strong honor, elevates himself to Lord of Harrenhal, and integrates himself with the Queen. That the Queen responds in horror is but a minor impediment. She'll come around when she realizes a treacherous yet loyal man's worth, just like the rest of this royal lot. In the end, however, the sped up downfall of House Strong is but a blip in the episode's runtime, just as it is a blip in the long ruinous history of Harrenhal itself. House of the Dragon now has a head of narrative steam and seemingly nothing but good fresh ideas to come. A pretty solid episode to be honest, but what do you guys think about this episode and the older actresses of Rhaenyra and Alicent's debut? Leave them in the comments down below. I hope you guys are having a great day and evening. I'll see you soon in the next video. I love you guys and stay safe.